Hi, it's Daniel from Theology is for Everyone with more insights in Matthew. In chapter 2, Matthew continued to call to the stand, as it were, some witnesses who could testify to the identity of Jesus, that he was truly Israel's Messiah, the king that they had been waiting for. In chapter 1, he presented Jesus' family tree, his ancestry, and his supernatural conception or virgin birth as witnesses or testimony to Jesus' identity. In chapter 2, he continues and he calls a handful of individuals, let's put it that way. First are the Magi, or the wise men. Now, you probably know the story. The wise men that came from the east and followed the star and found Jesus and brought the gifts and that sort of thing. Well, how did they know that there was a king of the Jews being born? Well, these were philosophers, ancient astrologers probably. Daniel in the Old Testament was one of the most famous of the Magi from the East. And in Daniel chapter 9, we saw him reading Jeremiah's writings, which were not that old at that point. And so you figure another couple, 600 years later, they probably had the ancient documents from every religion all over the world that they knew and they studied. And the book of Numbers talks about a star rising that was going to rule over Israel. And it's possible that when they saw the star, whatever that was, that they linked it to Numbers. And so they wanted to get to Jerusalem. Herod was not a good guy, not for his own people, not for the people under his care, not for the people around him. And it's possible that these Magi, when they finally figured out what was going on or thought they knew what was going on, went to their respective rulers. I imagine they were probably from all over the East. We don't know, but probably Persia, maybe even India or China. And they went to their respective kings and came with the concept that, hey, we want to make an alliance with this new king of the Jews. Herod is a jerk, and we want to get rid of him. And if he's going away, we want to make an alliance. And so, of course, they came and they brought the gifts. And so we have these pagan philosophers and astrologers and astronomers and magicians and whatever you want to call them, taking Bible prophecy literally and coming to see this king of the Jews. Well, they came to Jerusalem, which is the capital. Makes sense. And Herod didn't know anything about it. And so he asked his people, where's Messiah supposed to be born? And of course, they went to Micah chapter 5 and found out that it was to be in Bethlehem. And so Matthew now is going to start listing or quoting some Old Testament prophets that are going to identify Jesus as Messiah. So we have the Magi, now we have Micah. Of course, Herod decided to kill all of the baby boys 2 years and younger, and the Magi went back to their own place, their own homes, from a different direction instead of going back to Herod. And Joseph and Mary went to Egypt. An angel told Joseph, escape to Egypt and protect Jesus there. And Matthew quotes from Hosea chapter 11 and says that this fulfills what the prophet said, that out of Egypt I will call my son. That wasn't a direct prophecy for Jesus, but the word translated fulfill can mean to fill up or to make full as well. And just like Israel came out of Egypt I will call my son, which is the direct quote, Jesus sort of filled that up. As sort of a foreshadowing type of prophecy rather than a direct prophecy. And so we have the Magi, we have Micah, we have Hosea. The next one is when all the babies were slaughtered. There are all these babies, and it says in the surrounding region. We're not even sure how big that is, but Matthew quoted from Jeremiah about Rachel weeping for her children. A voice was heard in Ramah. Well, Ramah is about as far north of Jerusalem as Bethlehem is south, maybe 5 miles or so. And some people think that it was about that, a 5-mile radius all around Jerusalem. that the boys were killed. And we don't know how many that was or how big that was. But again, this was not a direct prophecy about Messiah, and yet there was weeping and wailing at this time. And so again, a foreshadowing that Matthew linked to Jesus. So we have the Magi, we have Micah, Hosea, we have Jeremiah. And then when Joseph brought the family back into Israel out of Egypt, instead of going to Bethlehem, they went back north into Nazareth. And the very last verse of the chapter says, this was spoken by the prophets, was fulfilled, that Jesus would be called a Nazarene. And again, there is no direct prophecy that says that Jesus will come from Nazareth. Yet Isaiah 53 says that he would be despised and rejected. And if you remember what people thought about, or Israelites thought about people from Nazareth at that time, John chapter 1 quotes Nathanael as saying, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" And so, again, not a direct prophecy, but a hint in Isaiah that Jesus would be despised, or clearly that he would be despised, and Matthew linked that to the town of Nazareth. So in chapter 2, we come up with at least five more testimonies or witnesses to who Jesus was, that he truly was the Messiah. And remember that under Jewish law, only 2 or 3 witnesses were needed. And now Matthew has offered about 7 of them, and he's not done yet. There are still 3 to come in chapters 3 and 4 that we'll see soon.